When he smiled, signing my termination papers, I knew the game wasn't over. He'd never guessed that the person he dismissed that day would be the one to demolish his entire Q3 numbers. Too ambitious, he'd called me, as if ambition in a woman was something to be cured. 3 months later, I'd show him exactly what my ambition could do, not with revenge served cold, but with numbers that burned through his profit margins like wildfire. This is how I turned his biggest mistake into my greatest triumph. My name is Emily Carter. And until 6 months ago, I was the top-performing sales executive at Westline Dynamics, a mid-sized software solutions company in downtown Chicago. At 32, I'd already broken more sales records than colleagues 10 years my senior. I wasn't just good at my job, I was exceptional. And everyone knew it. The Westline office occupied 3 floors of a gleaming high-rise overlooking the Chicago River. Every morning, I'd arrive before 7, coffee in hand, heels clicking against marble floors with purpose. My desk sat in the open plan area with the other sales team members, but my numbers set me apart. While others struggled to meet their quarterly targets, I consistently exceeded mine by 40, sometimes 50%. I grew up in suburban Ohio, daughter of a high school math teacher and a small business owner who ran a struggling hardware store. They taught me that hard work and intelligence could overcome any obstacle. I believe them. I graduated summa cum laude from Ohio State, moved to Chicago with nothing but ambition and 2 suitcases, and clawed my way up from entry-level positions to where I was now. At Westline, I didn't just sell software, I understood it. I spent weekends studying our products, analyzing competitors, identifying market gaps others missed. When clients had technical questions, I could answer them without running to the engineering team. When they needed custom solutions, I'd already anticipated their needs with proposals ready to go. My success, however, created ripples I didn't initially notice. Sarah from accounting stopped inviting me to lunch. Tom from marketing made snide comments about my aggressive presentation style. Jennifer, who'd been with the company 8 years to my 4, openly rolled her eyes when I spoke during meetings. She thinks she's better than everyone, I once overheard Jennifer whisper to another colleague by the water cooler. Acting like she owns the place, I wasn't trying to own anything, I was trying to excel. But in the corporate ecosystem of Westline Dynamics, excellence from someone like me was apparently threatening. Michael Turner, our CEO, initially seemed to appreciate my drive. He was 53, silver-haired, with the kind of commanding presence that filled boardrooms. He'd built Westline from a startup to a $30 million company. During my first 2 years, he'd praise my initiative in all-hands meetings, using my strategies as examples for others to follow. But something shifted when I started proposing expansions into new markets, suggesting product improvements, and worst of all, questioning outdated sales strategies during leadership meetings. The praise became less frequent. The eye contact during presentations turned cold. When I submitted a comprehensive proposal for targeting the retail automation sector, a market worth potentially millions in recurring revenue, it sat on his desk for weeks before being rejected with a terse, not aligned with company vision. The real tension surfaced when I landed the Morrison Group account, a deal worth $2 million annually that Michael himself had failed to close the previous year. Instead of celebration, I faced interrogation. "You went around standard protocol," he said, standing behind his massive oak desk, the Chicago skyline gleaming behind him. I followed up after hours and on weekends. "Yes," I replied. "The client appreciated the dedication. That's not how we do things here." But it worked. His jaw tightened. "You need to learn to stay in your lane, Emily." Stay in my lane. The phrase echoed in my mind for weeks afterward. My lane, apparently, was to be successful enough to boost the company's numbers, but never so successful that I might overshadow anyone else, especially not him. I should have seen what was coming. The excluded meetings I learned about secondhand, the projects reassigned without explanation, the way Michael's assistant, who'd always been friendly, started avoiding eye contact. The workplace I'd given everything to was slowly boxing me in. Punishment for the crime of ambition while female. Looking back now, from where I stand today, I realize that Westline Dynamics was never going to be big enough for both Michael Turner's ego and my ambitions. One of us had to go. He made sure it was me. He just never imagined I'd come back stronger. The termination came on a Tuesday morning in March. I remember because I'd just closed a deal with Brennan Industries the night before another $250,000 added to Westline's annual revenue. I walked into the office planning to submit the contract, maybe even expecting reluctant congratulations. Instead, Michael's assistant intercepted me at the elevator. "He wants to see you immediately." The long walk to his corner office felt different that morning. Other employees averted their eyes. Someone had leaked something. The air tasted metallic, like blood before a boxing match. Michael sat behind his desk, hands folded, a single sheet of paper positioned perfectly in front of him. HR Director Patricia Williams stood in the corner, her face a practiced mask of corporate neutrality. "Sit down, Emily." I remained standing. "What's this about, we're letting you go?" The words hit like ice water, but I kept my expression steady. "On what grounds?" Michael leaned back, a slight smile playing at his lips, the smile that would haunt my sleepless nights for weeks. "Cultural fit. Your approach doesn't align with Westline's collaborative environment." "My approach? You mean my sales numbers, my client retention rates?" "Your ambition," he said, pronouncing the word like it was dirty. "You're too ambitious for your role. It creates discord among the team." Patricia shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. This wasn't about legality. Illinois was an at-will employment state. They didn't need a real reason. "Too ambitious," I repeated, tasting the absurdity. "I'm being fired for being too good at my job. You're being terminated for failing to work within our established framework." Michael pushed the paper forward. "This is your severance agreement. 2 weeks' pay, conditional on signing a non-disparagement clause." 2 weeks. After 4 years of exceeding every metric, of sacrificing weekends and evenings, of making him look good in front of investors, 2 weeks. "And if I don't sign, then you leave with nothing." His smile widened. "And good luck getting a reference." The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. Patricia cleared her throat. "We'll need your laptop and access badges immediately." I looked at Michael. Really looked at him. Saw the satisfaction in his eyes. The petty triumph of a small man who'd found a way to remove a threat. He thought he'd won. Thought I'd slink away, defeated and silent. "You know what?" I picked up the pen, my hand surprisingly steady. "I'll sign." His eyebrows rose slightly. He'd expected more fight. I scrawled my signature across the bottom line. "But Michael, you should know something." I set the pen down deliberately. "I'm not signing because I'm beaten. I'm signing because I don't need to disparage you. Your numbers will do that for me." "Is that a threat?" "It's a prediction." I pulled my laptop from my bag, placed it on his desk along with my access badge. "You just fired your top performer for being too ambitious. Let's see how that ambition does outside your little kingdom." "You're nobody without Westline," he said, the mask finally slipping. "You think you can compete with us? You're delusional." The Morrison Group didn't think so. Neither did Brennan Industries. I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Oh, and Michael, that retail automation market you said wasn't aligned with company vision. You might want to reconsider. Though by the time you do, it'll probably be too late." Patricia escorted me to my desk, my former desk where a security guard stood with a cardboard box. I had 10 minutes to pack 4 years of my life under the watchful eyes of colleagues who pretended to be absorbed in their screens. I took only what mattered: my personal items, my handwritten client notes, the sales award I'd won last year, the one that had made Michael's jaw clench during the ceremony. Everything else belonged to a chapter I was closing. Jennifer watched from across the room, not bothering to hide her smirk. Tom from marketing actually waved goodbye, mock sympathetic. Sarah from accounting was the only one who looked genuinely uncomfortable, mouthing, "I'm sorry," when Patricia wasn't looking. The security guard walked me to the lobby like a criminal. As the elevator descended, I caught my reflection in the polished steel doors. My eyes weren't defeated, they were calculating. Every slight, every dismissed idea, every "stay in your lane" was fuel now. The March wind hit my face as I exited onto LaSalle Street, box in my arms, the Westline Dynamics logo gleaming above me. Employees on smoke breaks pretended not to notice the obvious firing in progress. I stood there for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Unemployed, humiliated, discarded, but also free. Michael Turner had just made the biggest mistake of his career. He'd fired someone too ambitious to fail, too driven to disappear, and too smart to forget. He thought my ambition was a problem to be solved. I'd show him it was a weapon to be wielded. The first week hit harder than I'd expected. The adrenaline of defiance wore off somewhere between my third rejection email and my mother's concerned phone call. "Maybe you pushed too hard, honey," she said gently. "Sometimes it's better to what?" Mom pretend to be less capable, smile, and accept mediocrity. Her silence spoke volumes. Even she, who'd raised me to reach for the stars, thought maybe I'd flown too close to the sun. My Lincoln Park apartment, once a symbol of success, became a prison of anxiety. The rent was $2,800 a month. My savings could cover maybe 4 months if I cut everything else to the bone. The walls seemed to close in at 3 a.m. when I'd jolt awake, calculating bills, reviewing my dwindling bank balance on my phone's glowing screen. I applied everywhere, sent out 47 resumes in the first 2 weeks. The responses were eerily similar. Impressive credentials, but always a but. Word traveled fast in Chicago's tech sales community. Michael's reach was longer than I'd anticipated. One recruiter was honest enough to tell me the truth. "Look, Emily. Off the record, Westline's HR is telling everyone you're difficult to manage. That's career poison." Difficult to manage, corporate speak for a woman who wouldn't shut up and color inside the lines. By week 3, I was nursing a single coffee for hours at a Starbucks on North Avenue, using their Wi-Fi to job hunt. My laptop screen reflected my deteriorating state, dark circles. Unwashed hair pulled into a messy bun. The same Northwestern University sweatshirt for the 3rd day straight. That's when I saw her, Madison Walsh, a former Westline developer who'd left 6 months before I was fired. She recognized me immediately. "Emily, Jesus, you look..." She caught herself. "I heard what happened." "Yeah, well, too ambitious, apparently." Madison laughed bitterly. "Join the club. I was too technical for suggesting we update our back-end architecture. Now I'm freelancing and making twice what Michael paid me." We talked for 2 hours. Madison wasn't the only one. There was James from product development, too innovative, Raj from customer success, too client-focused, and Lisa from marketing, too creative. All pushed out for excelling in ways that threatened the status quo. "You know what pisses me off most," Madison said, draining her 3rd cappuccino. "Westline is sitting on a goldmine of opportunities they're too stubborn to see. The retail automation sector alone. Don't..." I held up my hand. "I pitched that market extensively. Michael shot it down every time. Because he doesn't understand it. But clients are desperate for those solutions. My freelance work, half of it is building what Westline should be offering." That night, I couldn't sleep again. But this time, it wasn't from anxiety. It was from possibility. I pulled out a notebook and started writing. Names of every talented person pushed out of Westline. Every market opportunity Michael had dismissed. Every client complaint I'd heard but couldn't fully address within Westline's rigid structure. By 4 a.m., I had 3 pages of notes and a dangerous idea forming. The next morning, I called my father. "Dad, remember when you almost lost the hardware store to Home Depot?" "How could I forget worst 2 years of my life?" "But you survived." "How?" He was quiet for a moment. "I stopped trying to beat them at their game. Found what they couldn't or wouldn't do: personal service, specialized knowledge, community connection. Became something they couldn't be. What if I told you I want to start a company? With what money?" I looked at my laptop, my notes, my dwindling bank balance. With everything I have left, that's not much. It's enough. My savings account had $32,000, my entire emergency fund, my down payment dream, my safety net. I could use it to survive 6 more months unemployed, hoping someone would eventually hire me despite Michael's poison. Or I could bet it all on myself. The next call was to Madison. That retail automation market you mentioned, what would it take to build a minimum viable product? For a basic solution, maybe 3 months, with the right team. What if I could get you that team? She paused. Emily, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Michael Turner fired me for being too ambitious. I stood up, looking out at the Chicago skyline, the city that had taken everything and given nothing back. Time to show him what real ambition looks like. That night, for the first time in 3 weeks, I slept without nightmares. Not because the fear was gone, it was still there, gnawing at the edges. But it was overshadowed by something stronger: purpose. Michael thought he'd broken me. Instead, he'd freed me from the one thing holding me back, the delusion that I needed his approval, his company, his permission to succeed. The woman who'd walked out of Westline Dynamics with a cardboard box was gone. The woman who remained was done asking for a seat at the table. She was going to build her own damn table. The birth of Nova Edge Solutions happened in my living room on a rainy April evening. 5 of us crammed around my coffee table, laptops balanced on knees, empty pizza boxes stacked in the corner. We were the refugees of Westline Dynamics, the too much crowd who'd been systematically pushed out. Madison Walsh, our technical lead, had already mapped out the architecture. James Morrison brought his product development expertise and, more importantly, his rage at being terminated 2 weeks after I was. Raj Patel had client relationships Michael never knew about. Lisa Rodriguez could sell ice to Eskimos and had a marketing budget of exactly 0 to work with. We need $50,000 minimum to get started, Madison said, running the numbers for the 3rd time. That's bare bones, no salaries for 3 months, just infrastructure and legal fees. I opened my laptop, showed them my bank balance. I have 32, I can get another 8 from my 401k if I take the penalty. Emily, that's everything, Raj said quietly. No. Everything would be spending the next year begging for jobs from people who've already been told I'm difficult. I looked at each of them. I'm in 40,000. What about you? One by one, they committed. Madison put in 15,000, her entire freelance savings. James contributed 10,000 from his severance. Raj and Lisa added 5,000 each. Total $75,000 of fuck you money. We incorporated Nova Edge Solutions that week. The name was Madison's idea, the cutting edge of something new. The Nova before the explosion. Our first office was my apartment. Madison coded from my couch. James spread product mock-ups across my dining table. Lisa turned my bedroom into a makeshift recording studio for demo videos. Raj worked the phones from my kitchen, charm offensive mode activated. The strategy was surgical. We wouldn't compete with Westline across the board, that was suicide. Instead, we'd attack where they were: blind retail automation, specifically inventory management systems integrated with predictive analytics. Every major retailer was hemorrhaging money from inventory mismanagement. Westline thought the market was too niche. We saw a billion-dollar opportunity. I barely slept those first weeks. When the others went home at midnight, I stayed up researching, refining our pitch, identifying targets. My coffee maker ran 18 hours a day. My neighbors complained about the constant footsteps at 3 a.m. The first potential client meeting was a disaster. TechMart's procurement team barely let me finish the presentation. You've been incorporated for 2 weeks, their VP said, incredulous. You have no track record, no clients, no proof of concept. We have expertise and hunger, I countered. Westline has neither. Westline has stability. Come back when you do. 15 rejections followed. Our runway was shrinking. Madison started talking about taking freelance work again. James mentioned a job offer from Microsoft. Give me 1 more month. I begged them during a particularly brutal team meeting. 1 month. That's when I remembered Gregory Chen, not his real name, but what he went by in the industry. He owned a chain of boutique grocery stores, 12 locations across Illinois. We'd talked briefly at a conference when I was still at Westline. He'd complained about inventory systems, said the big players didn't understand specialty retail. I called him at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. Emily, Christ, do you know what time it is? The same time you're usually checking yesterday's numbers because your current system doesn't update in real time. Silence. Then, how did you know that, because I listen, can we meet? Gregory gave us 40 minutes on a Tuesday afternoon. Madison and I turned it into a live demonstration. We'd spent 60 hours building a custom prototype specifically for his stores, using publicly available data to model his inventory challenges. This would have saved me $200,000 last quarter alone, he said, staring at the predictive analytics dashboard. It'll save you more than that, I promised. Give us 3 months. If we don't deliver, you pay nothing. It was an insane offer. We couldn't afford to work for free. But Gregory saw something in our desperation that Westline's polished sales team could never show: genuine hunger. 1 store, he said. Prove it works, and we'll talk about the rest. We had our first client. The team worked 18-hour days implementing the system. I lived on site for 2 weeks, personally training staff, adjusting the system in real time, documenting every efficiency gain. When inventory accuracy improved by 34% in the first month, Gregory signed for all 12 stores. Contract value $400,000 annually. But the real victory came when Gregory mentioned us to his golf buddy, the COO of a major regional supermarket chain. The same chain Michael had pitched to unsuccessfully 3 times. Westline, the COO said when I mentioned my background. Turner's operation. They came in here with some generic bullshit that wouldn't work for a lemonade stand, let alone our stores. We're not Westline, I said simply. We're what Westline should have been. By the end of month 2, we had 4 signed contracts. Our bank account showed positive cash flow. Madison stopped talking about freelancing. James turned down Microsoft. Late one night, Lisa looked up from her laptop. You know Michael's going to hear about this, right? I smiled, thinking about his Q3 planning meetings happening right about now. I'm counting on it. What happens when he does? I pulled up our client pipeline, 17 active negotiations, all in the retail automation space Westline had ignored. He'll do what he always does. Underestimate the ambition of the people he threw away. The startup phase was hell, but it was our hell. Every small victory was earned with blood, sweat, and dwindling savings accounts. But we were building something real, something that mattered. And somewhere across town, in his corner office, Michael Turner was about to learn what happens when you fire someone for being too ambitious. The game was just beginning. June hit like a sledgehammer. The initial high of our first contracts crashed into the brutal reality of scaling a business with no cushion. Our $75,000 was down to $12,000, and payroll was due in 2 weeks. We need bridge funding, James said during our Monday morning meeting, which we held in my kitchen because I'd sold my dining table to cover last month's server costs. Or we need to start taking salaries off the table. No salaries means people leave, Madison countered, dark circles under her eyes matching mine. She'd been debugging code for 36 hours straight. I can't pay my rent with equity. Lisa threw her phone on the counter. Just lost research point. They went with Westline instead. Apparently, we're too risky. The room went silent. We all knew what that meant. Michael had started noticing us. I stood at my window, looking at the Chicago skyline that once promised everything. My credit cards were maxed. I'd sold my car, my good jewelry, everything except the laptop that was our lifeline. My parents offered to loan me money, but I'd refused. This was my fight. I have a confession, Raj said quietly. Dataflow wants to acquire us. They offered $2 million. What? Madison spun around. When were you going to mention this? They called yesterday. It's enough to pay off our debts. Give everyone a decent exit package. No. The word came out harder than I intended. We didn't come this far to become someone else's discount acquisition. Emily, be realistic, James pleaded. We're 3 weeks from bankruptcy. That night, I couldn't sleep again. But instead of pacing, I did what I'd always done. I studied. Pulled up every retail earnings report from the last quarter. Found the pain points, the desperate needs hidden in corporate speak. And there it was, buried in Megamart's quarterly call transcript. Inventory optimization remains our primary challenge, with misstocks costing us an estimated $2.3 million per quarter. Megamart, 47 locations across the Midwest. The Whale West line had been chasing for 5 years. I called their chief operations officer at 5:47 a.m. Ms. Carter, do you know what time? You're losing $2.3 million per quarter on inventory misstocks. Your current system updates every 24 hours. Ours updates every 30 minutes with 94% prediction accuracy. I can prove it. Silence. Then, you have 1 hour. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I hung up and immediately called the team. Everyone in, now. We have 28 hours to build the best fucking demo of our lives. We worked like people possessed. Madison rewrote code on the fly. James built a presentation that made Apple keynotes look amateur. Lisa created visualizations that turned data into art. Raj pulled every testimonial, every metric, every proof point we had. I didn't sleep, couldn't afford to. Instead, I memorized Megamart's last 5 years of public financials, studied their executives' backgrounds, found their weak spots and pressure points. The presentation room at Megamart's headquarters could have swallowed our entire apartment. 7 executives sat across from us, faces carved from corporate stone. Their CTO, William Harrison, looked particularly skeptical. Westline Dynamics has been our partner for 3 years, he started. And you've lost $27.6 million in that time from inventory inefficiencies, I responded. I have the data if you'd like to see it. Madison launched the demo. Real-time inventory tracking across multiple locations. Predictive analytics that anticipated demand spikes. Integration with their existing systems that Westline said was impossible. This is impressive, Harrison admitted. But you're a 4-month-old company. What happens if you fold? Then you're no worse off than you are now. I said, but what happens if we don't fold? What happens if we save you that $2.3 million per quarter? The room was quiet. Then the CEO, Margaret Thornton, spoke for the first time. Michael Turner called me personally, said you were a disgruntled former employee trying to damage Westline's reputation. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. Did he also mention why I was disgruntled, or why half my team consists of former Westline employees? He personally terminated. He said you were too ambitious for your role. I am ambitious. Ambitious enough to build in 4 months what Westline couldn't in 3 years. Ambitious enough to solve problems they won't even acknowledge exist. I leaned forward. Ms. Thornton. Michael Turner is right about one thing: I am too ambitious for mediocrity. The question is, are you? The silence stretched like a tightrope. Madison's hand found mine under the table, squeezing hard. Thornton looked at Harrison, then back at me. 3-month trial, 2 stores. If you hit the metrics you're promising, we'll roll out to all locations. My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. Terms: $1.8 million for full implementation, $200,000 years for the trial period. 200,000 years. Enough to keep us alive, to prove ourselves, to show Michael Turner that casting us out was the beginning of his end. Deal. Walking out of that building, Lisa actually screamed. Madison was crying. James and Raj were calculating numbers on their phones, faces glowing with possibility. But I was thinking about Michael, probably in his Monday afternoon leadership meeting, confident in his kingdom. He had no idea that his Q3 was about to become a bloodbath. Emily, Madison said as we climbed into our rented van, we couldn't afford Ubers anymore. You know this means war. Right, Michael's going to come at us with everything. I thought about the months of humiliation, the bank account draining to nothing, the nights I'd considered giving up. Good. Let him come. The trial started in 3 weeks. We had everything to prove and nothing left to lose. Except we did have something: we had hunger. And that was the one thing Michael Turner never understood about ambition. It's not just wanting more, it's wanting it enough to burn everything down to get it. Michael's counterattack came in week 2 of our Megamart trial. I was reviewing implementation data at 2 a.m. when Madison called, voice shaking. "Emily, check your email. Check it now." The subject line read, "Cease and desist, proprietary information violation." Westline's legal team was claiming we'd stolen trade secrets, that our technology was built on their intellectual property. They gave us 72 hours to suspend all operations or face litigation. "This is bullshit," Madison seethed over the phone. "Every line of code I wrote was from scratch. We didn't take anything." "That's not the point," I said, feeling the walls closing in again. "He doesn't need to be right. He just needs to scare Megamart." The next morning, Margaret Thornton called personally. "Emily, we can't afford legal exposure." "There is no exposure. This is intimidation." "Prove it." I had 48 hours before Megamart pulled the plug. Our trial was showing incredible results. 18% efficiency improvement in just 2 weeks. But none of that mattered if Michael successfully painted us as thieves. I called an emergency meeting. The team gathered in my apartment, faces grim. "We could counter-sue," James suggested. "Wrongful termination, defamation." "With what money?" Lisa interrupted. "Legal fees would kill us faster than losing Megamart." Raj had been quiet, studying his laptop. "What if we didn't fight him legally?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we made this about performance, not paperwork?" He turned his screen toward us. Westline just announced their bidding for the Carlyle Group contract, retail automation, our space. The Carlyle Group, 83 stores across 6 states. We'd avoided them because they seemed too big for us. But now? "They're presenting Thursday," Raj continued. "Final vendor selection is Friday." "That's in 3 days," Madison said. "We don't even have a proposal." "Then we better start writing one," I said. We divided and conquered. While James and Lisa prepared our Carlyle presentation, Madison and I documented every single piece of our technology development timestamps, commit histories, development logs, proving we'd built everything independently. Raj worked his network, finding former Westline clients willing to speak off the record about their frustrations. Thursday arrived like a prize fight. Westline presented at 10 a.m. We were scheduled for 2 p.m., but at noon, Michael Turner himself walked into the Carlyle building. I watched from the coffee shop across the street as he glad-handed his way through the lobby. "He's here to poison the well," Lisa said, standing beside me. "Let him try." We walked in at 1:45. Michael was in the waiting area, his silver hair perfect, his suit worth more than our entire operating budget. His eyes widened slightly when he saw me. "Emily." He stood, that familiar condescending smile spreading. "I heard you were playing startup. How ambitious." "Michael." I kept my voice neutral. "Still confusing fear with leadership. I see." His smile tightened. "You should know Carlyle values stability. Real companies, not garage operations run by disgruntled ex-employees." Disgruntled, I stepped closer, aware that Carlyle executives were probably watching. "I prefer liberated. You did me a favor." Michael. "Firing me for being too ambitious was the best thing that ever happened to my career." "Your career?" He laughed. "You mean your little experiment that's about to face a lawsuit? You mean your baseless cease and desist my lawyers found it amusing." I didn't have lawyers, but he didn't know that. "Almost as amusing as your Q2 numbers, down 12%. Wasn't it?" His face flushed. Direct hit. The conference room door opened. Nova Edge. "We're ready for you." I walked past Michael, then paused. "Oh, and Michael, you might want to stick around. You're about to see what real ambition looks like. The Carlyle executives were stone-faced as we began. But Madison's live demonstration changed everything. We didn't just show them software, we showed them their own data, analyzed and optimized in real time. We'd spent 36 hours building a custom solution specifically for their inventory challenges. This is your actual inventory from store 17, Madison explained, pulling up the data. You're losing $47,000 monthly from prediction errors. Our system would have caught that pattern 3 weeks ago. The CFO leaned forward. Westline said this level of integration would take 6 months. Westline says a lot of things, I responded. We prefer showing to telling. When we finished, the room was silent. Then the CEO, David Carlyle himself, spoke. How do we know you won't fold? You're 4 months old. Because we can't afford to, I said honestly. Westline can afford to give you 70% effort because they have 100 other clients. You'll be one of our 5 major accounts. When you call, I answer. When you need modifications, Madison codes them personally. We don't just want your business, we need it. That makes us dangerous. Or desperate. Both. I admitted. But desperation breeds innovation. Comfort breeds Westline. David Carlyle actually smiled. Michael Turner is in our lobby, waiting to discuss your cease and desist. I know. I pulled out my phone, showed him our documentation. Here's proof every line of our code is original. Here's also testimonials from 12 companies about why they left Westline. Would you like me to forward these to Michael, or would you prefer to? The room erupted in quiet laughter. We'll make our decision tomorrow, Carlyle said. But his eyes told me everything. Walking out, we passed Michael in the lobby. His face was purple, phone pressed to his ear, probably calling his lawyers. I didn't acknowledge him. He was already irrelevant. That night, Margaret Thornton called. The cease and desist has been withdrawn. Megamart is moving forward with full implementation. Friday, 4 p.m. My phone rang. David Carlyle personally. Congratulations, Nova Edge. 3-year contract, $2.7 million annually. Can you handle it? My knees buckled, but my voice held steady. Absolutely. Good. Oh. And Emily Michael Turner called me 15 times today. Each call made me more certain we made the right choice. The Q3 reports dropped on October 15th. A Tuesday that would go down in Westline Dynamics history as Black Tuesday. I watched from my new office, an actual office now, not my apartment, as the news rippled through Chicago's tech community. Westline down 31% year over year. Largest quarterly loss in company history. 7 major clients lost to emerging competitors. My phone hadn't stopped ringing since the reports went public. Madison burst through my door, laptop in hand, grinning like she'd won the lottery. Emily, look at this. Westline's stock dropped 18% in after-hours trading. On my desk sat our Q3 summary, Nova Edge Solutions. Revenue of $3.2 million. Client retention 100%. Growth rate 340%. We'd gone from 0 to crushing it in 6 months. But the real victory came at 2 p.m. when Fortune's tech reporter called. Ms. Carter, care to comment on your former employer's performance? I wish Westline Dynamics nothing but the best, I said, professional as ever. Market disruption is challenging for established companies. Sources say you've captured 40% of their lost clients. We've been fortunate to work with companies seeking innovative solutions. Michael Turner declined to comment but referred to your company as, quote, a temporary market anomaly. I smiled. Temporary anomalies don't sign 3-year contracts. The Industry Leadership Summit was that Thursday, 6 months ago. I'd been banned from attending as a Westline representative. Now I was keynoting the innovation panel. The universe had a sense of humor. I wore my best suit bought with our first profit, not credit cards. Madison, James, Lisa, and Raj flanked me as we entered the conference hall. Heads turned, whispers followed. the startup that killed Westline's quarter. Michael was there, of course, center table, surrounded by his remaining executives. His jaw clenched when our eyes met. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded and took my place on stage. 6 months ago, I was fired for being too ambitious. I began my keynote. Today, that ambition has generated 37 jobs, revolutionized inventory management for 63 stores, and saved our clients a combined $8.7 million. The audience was riveted. I could see Michael from the stage, his knuckles white as he gripped his water glass. Traditional software companies tell you what you need. We ask what you're losing. They sell solutions. We solve problems. They protect market share. We create markets. During the Q&A, someone asked the question I'd been waiting for. How do you respond to claims that Nova Edge is simply capitalizing on insider knowledge from Westline? Insider knowledge, I let the pause hang. The only inside knowledge I had was that Westline consistently ignored opportunities, dismissed innovation, and fired anyone who challenged their status quo. If that's insider knowledge, then yes, I'm guilty of paying attention. The room erupted in applause. Michael stood and left. After my panel, Margaret Thornton from Megamart pulled me aside. Impressive presentation. You know Turner's desperate, right? He's offering 40% discounts to keep clients. Desperation is expensive, I replied. Indeed. We've recommended Nova Edge to our parent company. They operate 400 stores nationally. Interested? My heart stopped. Very. That evening, the summit hosted its annual gala. Nova Edge had a table we'd earned it. Westline had 3 tables, mostly empty. The exodus was visible. Jennifer, my former colleague who'd smirked at my firing, approached during cocktails. Emily, hi. Congratulations on everything. Thank you. She glanced around nervously. Are you hiring things at Westline are difficult? Send me your resume, I said, meaning it. Success was the best revenge, but mercy was the best victory. At exactly 9 p.m., Michael Turner took the stage for his scheduled remarks. His speech about weathering market volatility and refocusing on core competencies sounded hollow. Everyone knew the truth. He'd fired his best people and now was paying the price. When he finished, our eyes met across the room. He looked older, smaller somehow. The king watching his kingdom crumble. Lisa appeared at my elbow. You should go talk to him. Why? Because you won. I found Michael at the bar, alone. His entourage had thinned considerably. Emily. Michael. He stared at his whiskey. You planned this, from the moment I fired you. No, I said honestly. The moment you fired me, I planned to survive. Everything else was just ambition. That fucking ambition, he muttered. That fucking ambition just posted better Q3 numbers than Westline's had in 3 years. He turned to face me fully. What do you want to gloat? I wanted to build something. You were in the way. I set down my champagne. You thought my ambition was a threat. You were right. But not because I wanted your job or your company, because I wanted more than you could imagine. And now I have it. The next morning, the Tribune's business section ran a feature, David vs. Goliath, How Nova Edge Solutions Disrupted Chicago's Software Scene. Below was a photo from the gala me shaking hands with 3 new clients while Michael stood blurred in the background. Madison forwarded me the article with a single comment. Holy shit, we actually did it. We had. In 6 months, we'd gone from a cardboard box of possessions to a company worth $8 million in contracted revenue. Westline's Q4 projections suggested more losses ahead. Michael had already canceled 2 major initiatives and laid off 15% of his workforce. But the sweetest moment came in a simple email from David Carlisle. Emily, thought you should know Westline just withdrew from consideration for our parent company contract. Cited, strategic realignment. Congratulations on winning by default, though we both know you'd have won anyway. 400 stores. Projected contract value, $12 million. I printed the email, framed it, hung it in my office right next to my termination letter. Bookends to the shortest, most brutal, most satisfying year of my life. Michael Turner had been right about one thing: I was too ambitious for Westline Dynamics. Turns out, I was exactly ambitious enough for everything that came after. The board meeting at Westline Dynamics happened on November 3rd. I know because Michael's assistant, his former assistant, texted me. They're voting him out, thought you should know. I didn't celebrate, didn't pop champagne or call the team. Just sat in my office, looking at the Chicago skyline, feeling the weight of what we'd accomplished. 6 months from termination to domination. From a cardboard box to a corner office. Nova Edge Solutions had just closed Q3 with $3.2 million in revenue. Westline had lost $4.7 million. The math was poetry. The next morning, the Wall Street Journal ran the headline, "Michael Turner steps down as Westline CEO following historic losses." Buried in paragraph 4. The company lost significant market share to emerging competitors, notably Nova Edge Solutions, founded by former Westline executive Emily Carter. My phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Michael Turner had viewed my profile. Later that week, I was presenting to our newest client when Madison interrupted. "Emily, you need to see this." Westline had been acquired by Dataflow, the same company that had offered to buy us for $2 million when we were desperate. The purchase price, $800,000, less than what we'd invoiced that quarter. "Jesus," James whispered, "we're worth more than Westline." We were. The startup born from spite was now valued at $15 million. The company that fired me for ambition was being sold for parts. That evening, I stood before our team, 42 people now. Half of them former Westline employees. The office was real, the contracts were signed, the future was ours. 8 months ago, I was told I was too ambitious, I said, raising my glass. That my drive was a liability, that I needed to stay in my lane. Murmurs of recognition. Many of them had heard similar words. But here's what Michael Turner never understood. Ambition isn't about climbing ladders, it's about building them. It's about refusing to accept that good enough is enough. It's about believing you deserve more and being willing to burn everything down to get it. The room was silent, electric. We didn't just beat Westline, we made them irrelevant. Not through revenge, but through excellence. Not through anger, but through ambition. The applause was deafening. Later, alone in my office, I pulled out the termination letter I'd kept, read Michael's signature one last time. Then I fed it into the shredder, watching it turn into confetti. I didn't need it anymore. The past was dead. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Emily. It's Michael." My hands stilled. His voice sounded different, smaller. "Michael. I wanted to. I owe you an apology." "No, you don't." "I do. I confused threat with talent, intimidation with innovation. I thought making you smaller would make me bigger. And I was wrong. About everything, about you, about ambition, about what leadership means." I looked out at my team, working late because they wanted to, not because they had to. "I know." The board offered me a consulting role. I turned it down. "I'm done." "What will you do?" A bitter laugh. "Learn to be ambitious. Maybe. The right way this time." The line went dead. I never spoke to Michael Turner again. 2 weeks later, at the Tech Innovation Awards, Nova Edge Solutions won Startup of the Year, standing at the podium, trophy in hand. I thought about the woman who'd been escorted out of Westline with a cardboard box. She would have killed for this moment. But I wasn't her anymore. That woman was fueled by hurt and fury. This woman, the one holding the trophy, was fueled by possibility. Success is the best revenge, I told the audience. But building something that matters, that's the best victory. The next morning, a Fortune 500 company called. They'd heard about us, wanted to discuss a national contract. The number they mentioned had 8 figures. Madison knocked on my door. "You ready for this?" I thought about everything: the sleepless nights, the empty bank accounts, The humiliation of being fired for wanting more. All of it had led here. I was born ready, I said. I just needed someone to tell me I couldn't do it first. She laughed. Thank God for Michael Turner, then. No, I corrected, standing to face the next challenge. Thank God for ambition. The city stretched out below us, full of companies that thought they were too big to fail, full of executives who confused fear with respect, full of talented people being told they were too much. I smiled, thinking of them all. The too ambitious, the too innovative, the too driven. Your time was coming. Mine had already arrived. The woman who was fired for being too ambitious didn't just crush someone's Q3 numbers. She built an empire from the ashes of her anger. She turned rejection into rocket fuel. She proved that the only thing more dangerous than ambition is ambition with nothing left to lose. And if you're reading this from your cubicle, being told you're too much, too eager, too ambitious, remember this. They're not warning you. They're warning themselves about you. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Have you ever been told you were too much for wanting more? Let me know your experiences in the comments. Your story might be the inspiration someone else needs to hear today.